5 seconds late here.
5 seconds late. Good afternoon. We will begin the Protection and Welfare Committee meeting for Monday, September 25th, 2017, at City Hall, room 207. It is roughly 5 p.m. All the alders are present. Alder Zimmer is here, Alder Dorf, Alder Galvin, and myself, Alder Scannell. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Alder Galvin, second by Alder Dorf. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes for September 11th, 2017.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Alder Galvin, second by Alder Dorf. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have our minutes from our last meeting approved. On to item number 4, consideration of possible action on a notice of change of agent for Quick Trip 420 at 1712 East Mason Street.
Motion approved. Second.
Motion by Alder Galvin to approve, seconded by Alder Dorf. Any discussion?
No, Alder.
I'm sorry, Alder Zimmer. Thank you, stand corrected, sit corrected. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That motion passes. Before I go any further, let me remind everyone that what we do at the committee here is just a recommendation to the full council. The full council has the authority to final say on all these issues, and we will be meeting, I should have wrote that down, when is our next council meeting? Anybody got that offhand?
October 3rd.
October 3rd?
Yes.
Okay, so, and that's in the room next door at 7 o'clock Tuesday, October 3rd. Item number 5, consideration of possible action,
Well, that's the next council meeting.
the next council, yep. Consideration of possible action on an appeal by Kathy Gillette. Gillette, thank you. Gillette, to the denial of her operator license application. Staff.
Law Department recommends denial of this appeal based on multiple felony convictions and numerous other criminal offenses.
Well, police department agrees as well.
You concur.
Correct.
I see Kathy is here. Did we want to open the floor?
Motion open the floor.
Second.
Motion by Alder Dorf to open the floor, seconded by Alder Zimmer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the floor is now open. If you care to address the committee?
Yeah.
Yes, please, and state your name and address.
My name is Kathy Gillette. My address is 765 BK Line Road, Luxembourg, Wisconsin. And I understand that I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but I've also paid for the mistakes. And I've been, since 2012, a member of society, paying all my bills, holding down a job. Now that the Blackstone has closed, I've been trying to find a job, and it's almost impossible to find a job without that. Can't work in a gas station, Walmart. I mean, they all want you to have it. Even Red Lobster, you know, I mean, it's holding me back a lot. And I've been a waitress for a long, long time, and trying to find a job in that, even at a gas station, you know, I can't just do it. I could have had like 4 jobs so far, but I can't because I don't have that license, and I'm trying to be a productive member of society. All my rent's all paid up to date, my bills are all paid up to date, and I'm just struggling, and I really need something to give here, you know? And I don't know what else to do but come here and ask again.
Any questions?
Did you've been here before then?
Not to one of these, no. I just sent in for my license.
And where are you? You got a place you want to work at?
Well, I had an interview at Red Lobster. They denied me because I didn't have my service license. Los Banditos,
Okay.
Shell Station, Quick Trip. I can't because I have to have that to work there. And I mean, it's like, it's starting to, I mean, I don't even know where I'm gonna get my rent from this month because I can't find a job.
I have a question.
Yep.
That's right. So, one of the felonies, the 2009, was maintaining a drug trafficking place, and then,
That wasn't even, they threw that out.
oh, they did, okay. Oh,
It was
okay.
Yeah,
dismissed, but
You're
the
right.
charges were
Right.
read
So
in,
then-
so they're still considered when it's dismissed and the charges are read in, it's dismissed, you're not convicted of it, but it's still being considered officially by the court for sentencing purposes. So
Okay,
the
so
one,
the
so the
same-
conviction was for the misdemeanor battery, the misdemeanor resisting or obstruction, and then the felony, actual felony
Oh,
conviction was battery to law enforcement officer.
Mhm.
But I guess what I was seeing is that there seems to be a number of THC or drug offenses, and even as recently then as 2014, there was another THC possession. So what have you gone to treatment? You go to AA? What do you do?
I didn't go to treatment. I did go to treatment while I was in prison. I did do a treatment in prison, and I had children living with me, which was the 2014 that I didn't, I mean, it was in my car. What was I supposed to do? I'm pretty sure they knew too, because they kept saying, quit covering for him, but I didn't know where it came from, so there was nothing I could really do. He's in jail now, so you know. And I helped put him there, and a lot of his friends too, because yeah,
Mhm.
I'm trying to clean my act up. I don't want that stuff around me, and yeah, I mean, I realize how much it's ruined my life.
I guess my concern is, obviously, you're dealing with an addiction issue, but at the same time, there's also, even more concerning to me is the battery and the continual obstruction of officer charges, even though some are dismissed and that. We all know that there's a basis for those charges being placed, and as we all know, there's plea deals, so a lot of that stuff gets tossed or read in, things like that. I guess that's my concern. If you have a server's license and there's an incident in your establishment that you're working at, are you going to cooperate with the police, or are you going to?
Well, I have been. I mean, you can. I don't know if they even keep record of it, but I've gotten at least 3 people put down for manufacturing methamphetamine or whatever you call it.
No, that's kind of different. I'm talking
I mean,
about,
there's.
you're in your establishment, there's an issue, the officers come in and ask you for information. Are you going to be upfront and honest
Of
with them?
course, yes. I have been, you know, I mean, even when they picked me up on the 2014, I was like, you know, I didn't argue with them. I just said, okay, you know,
Are you
I'm-
distancing yourself from those kind of individuals?
I don't hang out with, I live by myself with 3 dogs out in the middle of nowhere. I don't even really hang out with anybody anymore because it's so much everywhere, you know? I mean, and it's almost impossible to stay away from if you're around any of this, you know? So I've cut myself off of most of the people that still do it, and I lost a lot of friends, I can tell you that.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So do you have a license through any other municipality or village? Are you looking for jobs in other places or just in Green Bay?
I was going to go through for Augie's Bar and Grill, but when I went in there, the chief of police pretty much told me he wasn't gonna accept it, and I just said, okay, then, you know, and I gave up. But I was working at the Blackstone then, and they don't serve alcohol or anything there, so, I mean, then they closed, and it's been, I don't know, it's been just ridiculous since. I can't find anything, and, I mean, I've tried, and I've even had interviews, and they basically told me, if you can't have a server's license, you know, we need that, or we're not gonna hire you. And a lot of places are like that now. I mean, they don't want to deal with, you know, they don't want to deal with it if you can't, you know, if they can't schedule you without worrying somebody else is going to be there. It's hard for them, and it's not worth their time.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
It appears, you know, when it was in 2014 that you had the problem with the drugs in your car.
Be right in the car.
And you're saying it was your children's?
I don't know, it wasn't, well, he said it wasn't his, it was some kid named Lado. It had to be him, and I was like, whatever, you know? And then he's in jail right now because he's had a meth addiction. And even when I found out about that, I kicked him out of my house. I don't want him there, I don't want nothing about that.
When was
around
that,
me.
2014, then, more or less?
I wanna say April.
Okay. So you're 3 years, going on 4 years, without even that type of problem?
Exactly. I mean, I've pretty
Before
much
that,
maintained out there,
you really
that's why
haven't
I
had
live
any-
there.
You haven't had anything since 2009, really, that would be related to
Exactly.
being a server or something, with this one that you're claiming wasn't yours?
Well, I can claim it all I want, but it was
Well, I
in my
understand.
car, so, you know, there's nothing I can do about it anymore. I paid the fine and,
They look at your history or something, and
I'm sorry,
they just look at your history and they just...
they hold it against you. I
So-
mean, it's, and I get it, you know, I mean, I do the same thing sometimes, you know, you just, but I'm asking to, I mean, I've been trying and I've
So
stayed away
you
from
have had
it.
some offers?
I
but
have
they were
had some
pending your-
offers and I've been turned down because of it. And pretty much they told me right out, you're not gonna find anything unless you get this. You're not gonna find anything in what you are trained to do, and you do well, and I'm an awesome server. But I can't get a job if I can't do it, you know? I mean, even to be a waitress at Red Lobster, they won't, unless you can multitask, they don't want you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I guess I didn't really know what to do when I was coming here in the first place, but I just kind of winging it, so. All
No. Thank you for the information you've given us. I found it helpful.
right, thank you.
Motion to close.
Do I just go now, or?
Well, we'll close the floor and then we'll discuss it and we'll let you know what the committee's gonna recommend. And then that'll go to council. And so if you don't like our recommendation, you can show up at council and we can pull this item and you can present your case to the whole council and, see, you know. So a motion to close the floor by Alder Galvin,
Second.
second by Alder Dorf, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have a closed floor, discussion, motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alder Galvin.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Alder Zima. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So that carries unanimously. It'll go to council, and someone may raise a concern perhaps at council, but usually not if it passes unanimously here, but it's possible. So I don't know if you want to show up next Tuesday at 7 o'clock, just in case, but
If it passes, you can pick up your license the day after the council meeting,
Okay,
which is
just where do I go to do that?
clerk's office on the first floor.
Downstairs. All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
If you want, you can.
Go, my
Yeah.
computer's-
You got-
yeah, you're done here now.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Item number 6, discussion with possible action regarding an ordinance relating to animals prohibited at farmers market events. Staff? Yes, please. State your name and address, and address the chair.
Joe Falls, Assistant City Attorney. My address is at 100 North Jefferson Street, room
I
200.
don't think you need to do that as staff. Only-
You live there.
Oh, that was this address.
It's a lot of fun.
It's
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of
yeah.
Yeah,
Do you have two on there?
yes, I do.
Thanks.
Oh, wait a minute.
Thank you. Oh, this is a better one.
Yeah, I want to give you a better one.
So how this came about was the police department contacted me and they stated that they've had a longstanding rule where animals weren't allowed at the farmer's market. So then they went through the ordinances and they didn't see that there was one specifically addressing it. So they thought that, maybe we should go ahead and draft this. And so the short answer is that we don't have an ordinance that directly relates to animals prohibited at the farmer's market. If you look on the first page, we have 27.307, it's highlighted right there. It's animals prohibited at certain events. It does not include the farmer's market on here. It actually has Celebrate America Fest, which we don't call the 4th of July that anymore, so it's a little outdated here. And if you look at the second page, this goes to chapter 25, which deals with the parks. And it says here in section 9 that animals are prohibited in city parks and farmers market locations. But the thing about this ordinance is that the Parks Committee and the Parks Department has jurisdiction over this chapter. So this ordinance that says that dogs or animals are not allowed at the farmer's market really can't be enforced because the Parks Department cannot give approval for someone to bring an animal to the farmer's market. So even though this ordinance is in here, it should be, that language saying that animals aren't allowed in farmer's market during market hours should be taken out. And I think that can be handled at the park committee meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So I think going forward, really, I mean, an ordinance can be drafted to prohibit animals from the farmer's market. I think it's a decision up to the common council. The police department has talked about how it's a safety issue, a health issue. There's also people sometimes need to pick up after their dog as well, so it's always a concern as well. There's also the special events committee that approves these special events. This could be part of the process where certain animals are allowed at certain special events and other special events are not allowed. So either an ordinance can be drafted to address this, or it could be the special events committee that has part of the process approving animals at certain events and not at others. So there's some of the, at the farmer's market, some of the vendors, or I think the people that help run them had some concerns about it. So I don't, this ordinance, if it got approved this year, it wouldn't affect the farmer's market this season. So I think we have time on it to listen to the community and hear what their concerns are anyway. But there's also on Military Avenue, there's a farmer's market there. That's not really considered a special event because I believe it's on private property. So this won't affect that area because it's not on Broadway or Washington Street. So I think we have time on this to kind of mull it over and hear from other people on what to do. But an ordinance can be drafted. The special events committee can address it. So I think those are the two options right now.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think we've got the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think staff should take a look at this and think about an ordinance that will not be so constricted. So, because who knows what new events are going to be coming up with in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And I think it should be constructed so that people can get approval without having to redo the ordinance every time. So I would make a recommendation, we send this to staff.
Well, I would like to, before we send anything to staff, I'd like to get input from the community, I think. I'd rather hold this and get input from the community so that we know exactly what direction to give staff, because maybe we don't need an ordinance. Maybe we can do it with a special event. Because I know there are some, I did talk to Brian Johnson today, there are sometimes some events where they would like it to be pet-friendly and other events that they would not.
But wouldn't the ordinance
So-
have to address that?
Well, but if we don't need an ordinance, I mean, you just mentioned the flexibility, perhaps through the events committee, that might be just an easy,
But
quickly.
then we would need an ordinance for that. I mean, they
No.
well, how do they enforce it then?
I think that's what we'll look into. There is a special event committee ordinance, I believe it's in chapter 6, that outlines the process for that. We might just add it in there, otherwise it'd just be under the general application process where they could put that in the process itself. I think the police department would then probably be the department that would approve animals allowed in certain events and not at other events. Because they have a representative on the special events committee, like each department does.
And if a sponsor of an event does not want to have animals at that event, and people show up with animals, and they ask them to leave, and they do not comply, let's put it that way, and then they call the police, and the police come, and they give the police a hard time, even though there isn't an ordinance, they could still be cited?
See, I think that's where I think we'd probably need to have an ordinance, some type of thing in either chapter 6 with the special events committee, talking about animals may or may not be allowed, depending on the event, or in chapter 27, talking about how animals prohibited at certain events, that'd be more broad.
But I'm wondering if it could be cited for disorderly conduct.
That'd be the discretion of the police department.
Would that fit if,
Well, it's hard to say because it all depends on the individual event and such.
That's
But
exactly what happens. Yeah.
if the elements of the disorderly conduct are satisfied, then we could definitely cite.
well, anyway, okay, yes, Barb?
So I guess I was wondering how big of a concern is this? Where did it come from? Because I was just surprised it was on here.
So I think the police department contacted me, Captain Laux, I think, has more information on this, and he didn't get into really the specifics about it, but did say that they've been doing this for years, so I didn't really think this was a big issue, because the police department's been
This
telling people.
communication came from staff then?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Then I
So-
would like to get more input from the public on it, I guess.
Yeah.
That's how I
Yeah,
would.
and that's, I agree as well.
Because if you go to the Saturday farmer's market, they're not supposed to have dogs there. Everyone has dogs there.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, they're all over the place.
Is that market going to the dogs?
Almost.
Don't encourage.
Yes, Alderman.
Well, it just seems to me that we should expand this ordinance to take in whatever we're concerned about,
Mhm.
whether it's this farmer's market or anything else. 'Cause, and I guess, the committee has to talk about it, and I don't know if you want to have Stuart wants us to have a hearing or something about it. Get feedback from the public, or do we just want some time to think about it? Do you have some kind of draft ordinance?
No, I didn't draft anything yet.
We don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Are there ordinances in other places?
Not that I haven't looked into it, but there may or may not be, I'm not sure on that. I mean, it would be it would not be a long or difficult ordinance to draft.
I should just repeat what you were talking about. I didn't quite understand what you said about the park committee. The park committee can do things independently of the city council?
No, you see, what there is in chapter 25, there's a whole chapter on certain things that ordinances related to the parks in the city and the green spaces. There's certain areas where, so this ordinance that you have in front of you, 25.049, animals prohibited in city parks, that actually, when it talks about exceptions, I don't have it on here. It allows for a dog exercise area. So the Parks Department, in certain issues, if someone, it's kind of like in P&W, when someone appeals an operator's license, they come in front of the P&W committee. Sometimes that happens in the park committee. If something is under the chapter for 25 for the park committee, and someone has to appeal something, they go to the park committee.
Why was the farmer's market put in here?
That's old language. I don't know why it's in there. It should not be in there. In my opinion, it shouldn't be.
So, and it's one that should be transferred to here.
Yes,
Are
that's
there any
it.
other things that you notice that we've had an oversight about?
Every once in a while, I'll notice things and we'll correct them, but I haven't noticed anything yet.
Okay, so it says, no domesticated or privately owned animal shall be permitted in any part of any city park or farmer's market locations during market hours except as allowed under subsection 9A.
So 9A is actually, that's a dog exercise area exception. It doesn't talk at all about the farmer's market.
So they're prohibited right now. If the police department was called, they could act on 25.04.
I don't believe that allows the police department to act under that. Because the
Is this
jurisdiction,
an ordinance?
it is, but the jurisdiction under chapter 25 is only for in the parks or the green spaces of the city. So the farmer's markets that are in Broadway Street and Washington,
Well, in this case, it specifically says, I'm not against cleaning up
Yep.
what you think, where it should belong, but it is there for,
is
whether
there.
we like it or not. It is the law right now.
there's an argument that could be made that technically this is on the books and that you could enforce it through this, but I believe personally that under this chapter 25, the jurisdiction that's given would be only for a farmer's market in the parks or green spaces, not in the right-of-way or in streets like in Broadway Street or in Washington. So I don't believe this ordinance could be enforced by the police department. That's my opinion.
Well, I'm in favor of referring it back to your office to put it in the proper area. But I guess the park's also there, in other words, if you can't enforce it against the farmer's market under this ordinance, how can you enforce it in the parks?
Because the rest of the ordinance would still be valid. You'd only strike out the part that's invalid of it.
You're saying that's invalid because the farmer's market isn't a park.
I'm saying that the farmer's market portion of it is invalid only specifically to the farmer's market. The rest of the paragraph is fine. That's how a court would view this.
Well, is there any doubt in our minds about prohibiting the dogs at the farmer's market? I guess that's what we should talk about here, and if you want more time about it. Otherwise, I think we should recommend it and set it.
I'd like to get more community input. I know Brian Johnson couldn't be here, Jeff Merkis couldn't be here, so some of the sponsors of these markets, I think, would like to weigh in a little bit. So I'd like to hold this and get more opinion. I don't know if there's anybody from the public who'd also like to, any dog lovers out there who want to come and make an argument or whatever. I think if we hold this up till the next meeting and then get the input, then we'll have a better idea of what we want to do.
That's what was my recommendation.
Yep.
That staff contact whoever from either of the
Well, if it-
markets and that kind of stuff.
If we hold it up,
Exactly.
it'll be broadcast. And,
Well, I mean, we really can't ask people to go do their shopping at the farmer's market without bringing a dog unless they're blind or something like that.
mhm,
I mean.
Service animal.
I don't feel they should be coming to it. Are dogs allowed in some parks if they're on a leash or something like that?
If there's a leash, yeah, they're allowed. Like certain parks, if it's a 7-foot leash, and also certain parkways, I think, or excuse me, trails they have to be on. And then also the dog exercise area in Whitney Park is where they're allowed.
So that's all that's allowed right now. So if somebody at Tank Park, for instance, would be walking through there with their dog,
Mhm.
they're really breaking the law.
That's correct. Unless there's a pathway, I'm not familiar with that park.
Well, there's a path through the middle of it, you know. But on the path, they can be,
I believe so, yeah.
just not wandering around in the park where dog feces could.
That's my understanding of the ordinance, yeah.
So did you want to make a
Because
recommendation?
we had, I guess the only reason I bring it up is I remember we had a big discussion about free roaming dogs in the street, in the parks. You know, where people would come there and they're playing fetch with the dog and all that sort of thing. I don't remember what our final outcome was, but it must have been that they're prohibited from doing that. They have to be on a leash in a pathway.
That's correct.
Well, my sense is that, you know, the farmers markets are for a purpose, and we don't really need people stepping in dog dirt accidentally with the crowds and stuff like that. I don't think they should be there any more than anywhere else.
well, I'd still like to hear from,
Well, that's why my
The-
recommendation is
is-
not to hold this, but to have staff start formulating, meet with the public, meet with those representatives of those markets, and start getting some idea of what they want to see.
how it's,
And
And then it would come back here.
and then it would come back to here for the public, once something's ready, the public can review it, they can come here and comment on it, we can comment on it, and if need be, approve it or send it back for more work. But if
so
we
you
hold
want,
it,
well, if we hold it, the next meeting.
next week, we're gonna go through this all over again.
With hopefully public input, and then we could give staff direction.
Well, from what
Because
I,
if-
from talking to Brian today,
Yeah.
he wants to have some input in it, Jeff Merkus wants to
Yep.
have some input
Yep.
into it.
Yep.
They're the ones that run these things.
Well, let's just hold it and let them come at our
Yeah,
next
because we
meeting.
still want public,
Alright.
you know, you
Okay.
still might want public input, and to just have them talk to staff, I would still like to be a part of giving staff direction.
Okay.
Alderman Galvin, I think what we'll do is I'll work with the Economic Development Department, and we'll try to reach out to some people before the next meeting and try and get that done.
All right.
I think it's important to have it right here at our
Mhm.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
In other
agree.
words, invite them to come here if they have concerns about it.
Yeah.
The whole world has a right to know what they're talking about, not just staff.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
So I make a motion that we hold this to our next meeting and to have staff notify interested parties that this is going to be on our next agenda.
motion by Elder Zima,
Second?
second by Elder Dorf. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, I don't oppose. You guys have a good night.
Thanks, Joe.
I guess we
Uh,
can combine 7 and 8.
Yep, we're gonna combine 7 and 8, and with that,
Make a
uh,
motion, we combine items number 7, 8 into.
okay, there's a motion to combine 7 and 8.
Second?
Seconded by, made by Alder Zima, seconded by Alder Dorf, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we now have 7 and 8 together. And Captain, I'm going to,
Can I ask a question first, before we get going? Why is this here and not in INS? If anyone knows.
Not where?
INS. It's an inspection kind of issue, perhaps.
I mean, I was on the understanding,
Well, it's always been here historically.
oh, it has been?
Yes.
Okay.
Inspection-related issues come to protection at Lone
Okay.
That's our go-to.
All right, thanks.
Well, thanks for coming to us. I'd like to excuse Captain for, thank you for being here. I don't think you need to be here for this item. I know you got things you need to do, so thank you.
Thank you.
And staff, anything before we get rocking and rolling? You wanna?
Well, hey, I think at the alderman here, normally I think
Yeah.
would.
Good start.
You know,
Yep,
start
yep,
with it.
yep.
I'll just speak for myself and, come on up, Mark. It's just that we've had rat problems over the years, sometimes at a greater, sometimes lesser impact, but it does seem that there's been a lot more rat appearances and more people worried about it. Just two neighborhood association meetings drew crowds of 75 to 125 people. And your normal neighborhood association meeting doesn't have that kind of response. And the people were there specifically for this, and there is a lot of concern in the community. And I guess the reason for my communication was that I want to see if there's anything more we can do when when there does seem to be extensive problems. What the department does now, Mr. Pappy can tell you what we do, and I think that's fine for the casual problem that pops up here and there. It's a great help. I know I've given the department's literature on it and brought it to people. They were very grateful because it does really organize their thoughts about it and has them looking at their own properties and what kind of changes they may need to do. But we have had situations, and I've had it before this committee, probably 3-4 years ago. Time passes, maybe it's 5 years ago. But we had a continuing rat infestation. In that case, it was in Maple Street area. And it was kind of from Clinton Street all the way to Walnut and a little bit beyond. And it just didn't seem to come under control. And there was one of my constituents that a lady who trapped about 35, 37 rats all by herself on her property. And she was really frustrated. And our department did go out and do a sweep of there. They sent some information at first, and they did do a sweep and ordered people to get rid of trash that was on their property. This is Mr. Pappy, he gets it real succinct. He says, food, water, and shelter is what they need, and you've got to eliminate at least one of those. All of them? Well, they can't live without water. But anyway, that's basically it. And in that particular case, we just couldn't get control of it, and at that time, the city council did approve some money to bring in some pros to try to help clean out that area. And it eventually did get under control. But since it seems to be popping up again, and it's really more than usual, in my opinion, I maybe the department might be able to tell me otherwise. They might say we've had this all along. I don't know. I don't get that many sheets from the department regarding people that have been given orders regarding rats, but it is coming up, and of course, nobody wants rats. But they did provide the death of millions in Europe, with the bubonic plague and everything else, but they're like cockroaches. It's pretty hard to eliminate them from the face of the earth. But I think that we need to develop, or at least listen to the department of what they have right now, and we might want to add something to it. I have a couple ideas myself. I had thought that we should probably dedicate one of our telephone lines in the inspection department for people to call in, and on that line it would say, please leave your name and address, or the address you viewed. In other words, it'd be an anonymous affair too, where you viewed, and so that we would be able to complete our maps maybe more efficiently. I think Mr. Pappy's going to show you the map, and that was one of the things I was going to ask for, but they're already doing it. These guys are on top of things. So, but I thought if the people at the neighborhood meetings weren't readily aware of even where they should call. And I think if we could have some public service announcement or two, or something in the paper that says, call a certain number to report these things. And if they continue, call another number. And we'll send somebody out to kind of look through the neighborhood a little bit. Because we have done some sweeps of neighborhoods when we've had serious problems. And if we need to maybe put a little money aside in our budget next year, or even take something out of contingency if necessary this year to try to get at the problems, I think we really got to get on top of it as fast as possible and knock it out as fast as possible, knowing that they're going to pop up somewhere, but not to the degree that they are right now. So that was my thoughts on the matter. Mr. Stoyer, I'll leave it to you here.
I'm ready. All right, thank you, Chair, thank you, Committee. Like Alder Zimmerman mentioned, there have been 2 neighborhood association meetings. The first one was at Fisk Edition over at Fisk Park, and Alder Scannell was there as well. And we had about 75, 80 people. And the inspectors, Bill Pappy and Eric Crummey, were there, as well as we had the Brown County Extension. We also had an exterminator who was there as well. We had Captain Lapine as well. And so it was a good meeting. Joy Glass is our neighborhood president, and she organized it. And she did a lot of work along with Maria Jacks in that committee. And I think at first thought, the first reaction for me is that over the 5-6 years that I've been on council, I've had a few situations where we had to deal with a rat infestation in a house or 2 here and there. It wasn't that bad. Over the last 6-8 months, it seems that I think it's called Perkins Neighborhood. It's an online group, if you will, talking about, saw a rat, had one here, blah, 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 and they went back and forth, and it was getting to the point where I wasn't sure if it was more of a panic situation or if there was some legitimacy to what they were saying. So over a period of time, Fisk Edition decided to move forward and have this meeting, and I said I would work with them on it. Recently, Lombardi reconstituted their neighborhood association, and Alder Zimmer was there as well, as Alderman Worry as well. And they spoke about it fairly extensively. So I also met with Inspector Pappy for about 45 minutes last week, and he's been very proactive working. He worked along with me, took a number of notes. We've got there are handouts that are out there as well. But I guess the big thing, I'd like to refer to him a little bit if you have specific questions. I think we were looking at an area where there's been a concentration of calls. Some people might panic a little bit and they will not call it in. They'll just say, hey, there's a rat over there, but they won't call it in. If it's not called in, you can't document it. So we're looking at that, but there's things, educational things, bird feed, how do you store it? I heard they mentioned dog feces, that rats go after that, and I thought, great, now you have to have dog owners take care of that as well. We had talked about sweeps, as Alder Zimmer mentioned, going down a particular block, but you always have to be leery about letting people know that, hey, we need to come on your property to take a look, and there might be some legal issues with that. If it's a safety issue, that might trump that. So there's some citizens here that would like to speak as well, but I thought I would defer to Inspector Pappy a little bit on this, and I can interject accordingly, and Alder Zimmer as well. But we just talked about a number of things, and everything, talking about a home that's condemned. Let's say a condemned or a home that needs to be raised. Sometimes in the past, what happened is the home would be taken down and there would be rats in there and they would scatter. Well, our ordinance calls it out that whoever owns that building needs to make sure that that problem's taken care of beforehand. So it's things like that, being proactive. So that's all I have right now, but I thought I would, maybe Inspector Pappy could come up, and I appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me. I started off as the neighborhood compliance inspector. I'm the neighborhood development manager now, so I chased them around for a while. Alderman Steuer wanted a map. I don't know where to put that, if you guys just want to see that.
Want me to hold one end up, or? I used to draw maps, so I'm partial.
What this is, it's from October of
Come a
2016.
little closer. A little closer.
I was gonna put on
You
a,
can't see well, Randy, or what?
from October of last year, 2016, till September, the current month. This is a map tracking all of our complaints that we receive specifically about rat conditions that could harbor or have conditions that their rats are there. So we track them on here. These are not saying that they're all, these properties or these areas have had rats.
Right.
They have rat or conditions that could attract them.
Could you
So-
just tell me like what the boundaries, some of the bigger streets boundaries there? So we can.
Sure.
I
So
can't really see
right
what
here,
one
we
is.
have Military Avenue.
Oh, that's.
Back over
Military.
here, we have Velp. Broadway is right here. Here's Lombardi, and here is Lambeau Field right down here. So recently, this is the number of,
Where the bridges are, you got Mason, Shawano.
Yeah.
So
that
those
kinda
those aren't
deal.
all
Right here in Lambeau.
reported rats.
correct, where they were reporting possible sightings, or they were reporting conditions that could be conducive to rats.
Wait a
So
minute, so people are calling and saying, I saw a rat, or
Mhm.
people are calling and say, I think this would be a great place for a rat to live?
Like
Correct.
they saw some bird
Correct.
feeder.
Yep, so then our inspectors would go out and would check the complaint out. So these are complaints.
And how many incidents, do you know off the top of your head, how many incidents there have been without counting the dots?
On the map here, approximately about 150 total properties on this, give or take.
And what do we normally get in a year for complaints?
Total complaints?
Yeah.
Yeah.
About 3,500 complaints.
Of
What on
rats.
this-
No,
No, no.
total
No.
complaints.
Of total.
On this
No, no, no,
issue?
I'm talking rats. What do we
That's what
normally
I
get in
thought.
rats a
Yeah.
year?
Well, that comes to you right there, right?
Probably right around that, right around
Okay,
that.
so-
This is a
Nothing-
normal
This is
yearly.
pretty normal, yeah.
Okay.
There's no rats on the east side?
There's no
Apparently
ships on
not.
the east side.
They usually,
There's no
well,
ships.
my theory is they port here on the west side, and then, that's the access. And I started in 2011, I chased them around for quite a few years. In that time, I did not get one complaint on the east side. We have gotten complaints, for instance, garbage in the yard, conditions could attract a rat. I went out there, did not see, not to say that they're not there, not to say that, but we haven't got any complaints.
Wow.
Do you think a lot of it has to do with the shipping coming in? That's what I saw in one newscast.
Yeah, Green Bay's a port city, they've been here for
Well,
a
but
long
but I'm
time,
asking,
Could, it very well could be, they had to be, I'm not discounting that, they probably got here,
so it
from
could be
those
part of
means-
the problem.
yes, yeah, but food,
We've had them on
water,
the east
shelter.
side, though. Maybe you aren't getting calls lately on the east side, but we have had them. East River area, yeah, everybody remembers the TNC crust fair. That,
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, no, not to say that they haven't been there in the
Right.
past, but
I'm sure there are
the majority of our calls you'll see are in that large west side, west side area. So a little bit about our process, inspections, we're complaint driven, remember, so residents have to call in a complaint, so we're complaint based, so they can remain anonymous, they would send in a complaint to us, and then we would go out and then we would investigate that complaint to confirm or deny the existence of any type of ordinance violation. So in this instance, if people are seeing rats or there is conditions that are conducive to rats, we need to be made aware of those things. And that's what's happening. People are making aware of us, of those things, so we're sending inspectors out, kind of investigating the neighborhood, canvassing in the neighborhood. Part of our processes is we'll look around the neighborhood, we'll look to the house to the left, to the right, behind. Specifically when there's rats, we'll do a thorough inspection of the yard to look for food, water, shelter, how are their sanitation issues, what are the conditions around there that could be conducive to perpetuating that problem. So that's part of our normal inspection process that you guys are all aware with. We do have a rat ordinance, rat prevention ordinance, that's in chapter 8.07. Very thorough, gives us a lot of enforcement tools to be able to enforce if somebody's not complying or if we have issues, to be able to handle that. So really, the big things that we're working on is education and enforcement. Education being the biggest thing, is trying to educate folks that they're here, they're a pest, they're an animal, they're very shy, they're very adaptive. They need these things in order to continue to thrive and to continue to exist. So if you're having a problem, here's some things that we would recommend that you need to do to remove those, things to be able to get rid of them, as well as develop a pest management plan. So it's not just any one particular thing. You could be doing everything right. You could be following the rules and you have no ordinance violations, but you could still be having them because there's perfectly legal things around that our ordinance allow that could, cause, harborage there. So it's not just one, we can't place the blame in any one particular area. They've been around for a long, long time. They're gonna continue to be around for a long time. And this isn't just a City of Green Bay issue. I've reached out to many pest professionals, and this isn't just a Green Bay thing, so.
So I'm a neighbor, I see a rat in my yard, I call the Green Bay Inspection Department. They send a guy out, he looks at the property behind me and on either side of me. He may be catty-cornered from me. Anything they see that they think might lead to a rat's being able to live there, they notify the owners of those properties that they need or must remedy the issue.
Yeah, especially if there's ordinance violations, yeah. If we see violations that are present, like garbage storage, food in the yard, that is, like they're feeding wild animals, that's not allowed. Animal control, handles that. So if there's certain conditions that need to be addressed, we'll address them, even if there are conditions where we want to educate them. We'll do lit drops. We've done 3 of those. We got another one planned where we'll map out a whole big block and we'll send literature to the large area to let them know that these are the steps you need to take in order to prevention methods.
But that's it though. I mean,
Yep.
you don't go and do the entire block or the block on either side all around that one block where the rat was first seen.
No, we'll do a large area. We'll do a lit drop of a large area.
No, not a lit drop. I'm talking when there's a complaint, say in the 100 block or say the 500 block, you don't go to the 400 block, the 300, or, in the 600 block, and then the blocks behind and in front. You just do.
Right now, we start in that particular
Just
area
that
where the
block.
complaint was
And
received,
then-
in that vicinity.
Okay, and it's only complaint driven.
Correct.
And you have how many inspectors?
4 housing zoning inspectors and 1 neighborhood compliance
So you have
inspector.
5 inspectors for 3,000 calls a year.
Yes.
And would it be more effective, instead of being complaint driven, our inspectors were, and if we had enough inspectors, obviously, because it would seem to me 5 for 3,000 calls is.
I know where you're going, and it would, I don't know if that is the answer for not be complaint driven. You're talking if it was more of like a proactive,
Yeah,
we would probably need a lot of inspectors, way too many to be able to handle the.
well, I guess my concern is, this is, the hue and cries up, pitchforks,
Yep.
Torches, we got all that going now.
Sure.
We're getting some education, and after a period of time, this goes away. And then it comes back again. I mean, I remember when I was on the job, there was a lot of talk about Mr. Zimma's district having a lot of rat problems and that kind of stuff. And again, here we are again, and then we're gonna be here again, and then we're gonna be here again. And I know we can't eradicate them,
Yep.
but if we had a process where we could be more proactive on, and let's face it, a lot of these inspection issues that bring in these rats are the same inspection issues that we have about negligent neighbors, abandoned homes, and they bring in other problems too,
It's a bigger,
investigations of
broader
other,
issue.
yes.
There's other issues for.
So I'm just wondering if big picture, down the road, if we could be more proactive, solve a lot of these problems before they become a big problem.
If we could come up with a way to do that, believe me, I'm all ears.
Okay.
I am all ears. Any way that we can improve the process, I am all ears. I think with that though, as we explore that stuff, we'll have to flesh
Sure.
out what issues.
All right,
there
does
may
the
be
city
present.
currently poison or do any kind of eradication?
No.
Have they ever?
Well, Cheryl can talk a little bit about, I wasn't here in
We hired some-
2009. I looked at some of the, I'll let Cheryl speak to it.
Back in 2009, I think 2010, we had the same kind of little bit of a population explosion in specific areas. Actually, it was closer towards the river, I think, at that time. And we did hire an exterminator at that time who did some trapping for us in specific areas. We worked directly with them. And I think that helped knock down the population. And that's, I think, one of the things that we had talked about doing is maybe having some money allocated potentially if we needed to use enhancement funds. Maybe up to, and we don't know what the cost would be at this point, but to actually hire some extermination teams maybe on those areas where you see some hot spots. So we do our normal work with regards to letting people know the education process, doing maybe the potential sweeps of those smaller areas, but then at the same time, if we establish that those areas have a larger population, an explosion, let's say, we bring in those private firms that come in and actually do additional trapping, especially if we have those areas where we've got maybe some vacant properties or condemned properties, those types of things, where we know the owners maybe aren't going to do that work. A lot of owners do this work on their own. You know, they don't want to have rats like anybody. You know what I mean? So they're doing this work on their own, but we could at least help with some of those areas where there's a lot of complaints.
And in the past, when I was an inspector, I myself have ordered owners to hire professional pest exterminators.
order them to do that?
Yeah, I've written them on orders, you know, to do that when I know that I've physically seen rats there myself, and was struggling with compliance issues for other things, so that was included in my orders and we have that ability to do that. If we're struggling with compliance and struggling with enforcement, and we know that there's issue there and they need a little, they're not kind of we can issue those orders to clean that, and we've done that in the past.
Okay.
How do they keep pets safe from the baiting of the rats?
A lot of it is placement. And they're trained professionals. They know what to look for and where to put the rodenticide chemicals. A lot of them, if they're baiting, they're putting them inside a bait box where the access is restricted. There's certain types of paste baits that they use that are been developed that are very good at luring the rats into an area, because the biggest thing is rats are very shy, and if there's an abundance of food sources around, you're only going to get the not so smart rats that are going to be looking around and taking an easy meal. But once their buddies find out, oh, I'm not going there. There's free food over here. Why would I go over there?
Do we have more gardens now than we used to have?
Not anymore.
So it's not
measuring that.
Because would that
Yeah.
be a food source, gardens?
Sure.
Gardens, bird
seeds,
feeders.
chicken feed.
Okay.
People feed
Yeah.
peanuts to squirrels.
If you talk to any rodent professional, Wisconsin's a huge agricultural state. This
Yeah.
is something that's not new for a farmer.
Right.
Anybody that's storing food or producing large quantities of food, they have to do pest management control,
Okay.
rodent control. So this, you call any professional like I did, and this isn't anything new for them. So, yeah. It's like I said, if it was ships, if it was this, it'd be really easy. It's like anything else, it'd be really easy. But
Well, and if
What?
you have a rat at your house, that's a problem. That's a problem. One rat's a problem at your house. Of course,
Yeah.
you want to get rid of that and eradicate it, so.
Eradicated?
Eradicate.
I knew that was coming, Randy. I knew that was coming.
Have you noticed?
But I'll let him have a chance here. Let's.
I got a couple more rabbit
Do you?
comparisons if you want, but I think I'll save them for another day.
Yeah, I'm gonna take off then if we head down that road. I know this. Yeah, way to go, Randy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to think what things we might be able to do if we're to be proactive. What kind of things could we maybe do? Because first of all, I want to say that there's a lot of problems that don't get reported to the department.
Correct.
Take care
Yeah.
of them themselves.
Mhm.
I myself, in the last couple of weeks, have gone to the houses of a couple people and found out one of them was a house that didn't have a good foundation, and you could see where they're burrowing under. We got a hold of, I called the clerk's office and got a hold of who the owner was and called them, and they sent somebody out there that same day. And there was good cooperation on these couple that I had, and so it was solved without it ever going through the department, but they
That
happened
happens
to
a
call
lot.
me.
That happens a lot.
In fact, it was somebody else that told them to call me, from, not even in the city. But anyway, somebody from Swamico, who I know who owns a tavern out there. we eat fish sometimes at the same place I do, and he told his niece or something, he called him. But anyway, the department, this map doesn't show all the problems there are. People do take care of their own problems. But
No,
I
this
think what
map
I
is
wanna-
simply the
This
ones
is map
they
is-
call
that-
into us.
Yeah, these are the ones that we
complaints.
know about,
Yep.
that
Yep.
are called in. And I think, some people really feel helpless when they have a rat problem or something, because they've never dealt with the problem.
Sure.
And it's just like, if my car stops, I don't know why,
Mhm.
I'm in trouble. I need to look for somebody to help me. And I'm just wondering if, I guess I was talking about a outline or something before, but should we, put together, just throwing things out here, I'm not demanding anything, but should we put kits with instructions together, get a supply of them, and when people call and say, well, if they're at your property, we've got something here we think can help you. That might be something we can do to be proactive, that people won't feel threatened about, they'll feel like, oh, there's help, there's help. And, like I say, there's a lot of people that just don't know what to do. That includes me a lot of times, a lot of things in life. But, so I thought that's something we might consider. I was bothered by one thing, and I guess I'd like to hear if you have any suggestions about it. When the professionals were at the Fisk Park Neighborhood Association there, well, they told us that the rat poison that people buy is not of the same strength and quality, because I guess they were killing pets and things like that Mr. Orff was talking about a little earlier. But, that a person would have to call a professional, we know that that's not cheap. I mean, it's gonna be at least a couple $100. People flip out sometimes when they come to where to get $50 to take care of their muffler or something. But, is that the case, that really some of the things that are on the shelf at Walmart or your local store
It's
is
It's
not,
business.
is not strong enough to
It-
take care of the problems?
on a small scale, depending on a one, two rats here or there, depending on the size, maybe, but depending on the situation, the environment, the size of the structure, the conditions around
How
your
you're
house,
applying
how
it.
you're applying it, where the rats are located. There's a lot of factors that go into play. And
Is
any-
that something we can try to develop a better kit? And
Well,
Yeah.
tell people
one of
what
the things-
products the ingredients to look for and how to place them?
One of the things we're gonna do is redo, we have this, our rat information sheet that we've been handing out. We're gonna redo that. We're gonna make it a little bit easier to understand, maybe more specific to the kind of rats we have here in
Well, you
Green
can
Bay.
have that,
So-
I thought that was very helpful, but maybe another sheet that says, here's how you get after it.
Right,
And-
and so we want to kind of reduce some of this educational information.
I get nervous, Alderman Zima, that when people are buying stuff over the counter and they don't necessarily know how to use it or how to apply it, that's when you run into issues. And we can't stop them from buying this stuff over the counter, because anybody can go and purchase it and buy it, and, that's nothing we can do about
So
that, but.
it's your opinion then that the commercial products that are out there are sufficient if they're used properly?
Oh, yeah, there's stuff
Okay.
that for talking
Because
about
that guy was kind of
professionals.
talking a little differently. In other words, when they get a real problem, then they call in the pros, and I don't know if that was an advertisement or what, but.
Partly.
Um,
It's a business, but I can't speculate,
And he said, we got the good stuff.
Sure.
That could very
That
well
could very
be.
well
And
be.
so
I know
don't
people have been successful on their own in
Mhm.
treating rats, but you're right, it's about how it's
I
done.
talked to an individual who was having that same issue, and the lady that was the one that you were referring to, that was catching all the rats, and he said, I want to hire that person because they're obviously pretty talented and have a good system in place as far as they're catching them, so.
She was tough, believe me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking, can we develop a friendly letter? And it should almost starts out that, that we send out, because I know one of the ladies, and I brought it into you today, and,
Yeah, that was our orders that
it sounded
were
pretty
sent, yeah.
threatening.
We have a
And she
friendly
says,
letter already.
I called in the problem, and they're telling me that that I may have to get a professional or something, and it wasn't even her property that the pictures were taken of, and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, in other words, a normal person might feel that way. I think we need to develop
We got a letter.
the
that
tough
we-
letter and the one we use on some landlord that doesn't have a foundation and doesn't, and got a million other problems. One letter for them, and another letter of instruction that starts with a friendly attitude and doesn't have any of that, you take care of this or we're gonna kill you, you know?
I don't think any of our letters.
No, I don't
Not
think
quite
we-
that
yeah,
strict?
we're not quite that.
It just,
not quite that
she
straight.
forwarded
But-
to me, and I feel that it was too strongly written for.
Was that, did she get the friendly letter, or was that, which letter did she get?
Friendly,
now?
our
The
friendly letter is an
letters have pretty
informational
strong
letter.
language on the back.
That we do,
information.
that we just mail out, it's an informational letter. She had orders, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Those were orders.
The-
Because
the
at some
inspector-
point, we have to, if we're aware of it, at some point, if somebody doesn't do anything, we have to enforce that. Now, that's our
Well,
standard
she
letter.
didn't even have a rat hole.
Well, and that's why we encourage
That's-
people to call us, so we can
Yeah.
work with them on
She,
it.
the pictures that were taken were of her neighbor's property
Mm-hmm.
that were sent to her and said, you take care of these things.
But there were conditions on her property that could have lured
Well,
them, for
she
instance, the
said there were
food
some-
sources, the
they
harbor
just put a new
sources.
shed in and some of the pots were outside and things like that. and
Bird
she didn't have a
feeders.
problem with it, you know. I'm not trying, I don't wanna,
Yeah, I know
I don't
what you're
wanna just, prosecute this particular
Right.
case.
Right,
I
okay.
just thought that if we'd have a friendly letter, we can say, when people call with a problem, say, here's some things that you can do, and
Sure,
here's,
absolutely.
and here's the ingredients and the products that you should do, and make sure you, and do this, that, or another thing. Here's some suggestions of how to apply the bait, et cetera. Things that would actually be real helpful to somebody who felt helpless.
I would want to, well, we'd want to talk about that with law too, with regards to giving instructions on how to apply poison. I mean, that's, it might be one of these things, go to these resources for information type of situation. We could do that.
Well, I'd say that's not much help.
Well, but we're not professional applicators of these items, so, I mean, we can tell them these are the resources, how, generalize
We have
things,
to
but
ask people to do, so that we can give competent information. I mean, I don't expect everybody in the City of Green Bay employee to be a professional eradicator, but when we know there's a problem, we should get as much professional help as we can in putting the proper letter together, so people feel they can approach these things themselves. And, if somebody else keeps complaining, then we move in on it. But anyway, it's just my feeling about it. I feel that there needs to be a friendly letter that talks more about, here's how you can solve your own problem more easily.
we've done that in the past.
Yeah.
I think in '09 we did that.
That's part of
I
our.
had a couple other things marked down too. Farmers used to have a lot of cats.
You wanna set the cats free?
Let's get some feral cats in on this thing.
Cats, owls,
Well,
trappers.
and I was interesting, I saw a program.
Yeah, owls, let's get owls.
On the History Channel or something once about rat terriers. And
Rat
how there used to be people who had like 10 rat terriers, and when there was a big problem in a certain area, they came and they paid a fee to that guy, and the rat terriers, inside a couple hours, would pile up a lot of rats. But so, I don't know.
It's probably where
Maybe we
George
should,
Costanza bought his hat
let people
from.
know that rat terriers will help with the problem. I don't know. Anyway, that was a little sideline. The other thing I wanted to ask about is that, we got the garbage cans, which I think we all thought was going to help with these problems. Because, they're pretty impenetrable. I think
Correct.
they're
They
good.
could chew right
They're
through
good.
those, though.
They're good.
You're kidding.
No, they can chew right through those.
Has that happened? Do we know?
I've been to certain properties where, yeah, they've gnawed right through.
Oh, my God.
that,
okay.
yeah.
All right. I'm sorry, Alderman, go ahead.
Well, and I'm just, for the members of the committee.
It does help, though. I mean, it's sport, a lot of it is storage, and a lot of it is how you're storing it, and are you emptying your garbage weekly? Are you checking those things? I mean, DPW has, they
Well, we have
handle these
inspectors
on
that
a.
go out and
Yep.
write orders on people,
Yep.
because
Right?
some
Yeah.
idiots put
You gotta-
bags of stuff behind their buildings.
Yeah, you still gotta bring it to the curb, you still gotta do your part, you still
Right.
gotta, whether, that's kinda immaterial. I mean, they can chew through asphalt, soft concrete, wood. It's-
Rats can chew through concrete.
Soft concrete, yeah, certain kinds, yeah.
You can even eat it.
Wow.
But anyway, what I wanted to bring up is that historically, up until 3, 4, 5 years ago, we did do a lot more work with bulk pickup in the city of Green Bay. We only pick it up for a fee now, and we have a couple times a year where I guess people can put bulk things out. But in between those couple times a year, then what do people do? What do they store with it? Because some people don't know they can take things to the west side garage or the east side garage and all these things. But we had a bulk pickup program that, boy, it was really efficient. I don't know what, do you remember what the cost was? It was about $350,000 a year or something.
I don't remember what that cost was.
Don't hold me to that, but that one sticks in my head a little bit. And I know that in efforts to knock down budgets and that, it was under fire for many years and finally went out on a pretty, fairly close vote. But I'm wondering if some people are storing the mattress in the backyard.
We can
Because they want to-
handle that with inspections guy.
Well,
That's-
we can, but we're not gonna start doing citywide sweeps
Right.
anytime soon, I believe. We work on a
Complaint
complaint
basis,
basis.
yeah. I would hope that if stuff like if mattresses and junk's piling up in somebody's yard, that to be a good neighbor, that you would call it in, we'd want to get that taken care of. That's part of like raising that expectation level of what's, what's
Well,
acceptable in the city.
I'm just bringing up possible
understand.
things that could help with these things.
Yep,
that
I
Maybe we ought to
understand.
consider reenacting that program because it took care of a lot of stuff in this city. And even if we amended a little bit, we had this thing pick up. Now, obviously, when somebody puts out a boatload of stuff out there,
Well, and that's what was happening. It looked pretty bad.
and that would happen. But nonetheless, it was cleaned up. And maybe if we make an amendment that, anything that's over a certain amount, we send a bill. We pick it up automatically and we send a bill accordingly. But it has to be somewhat liberal. I mean, it can't be somebody puts a baby mattress out there and it's $75 or something like that. But the city was kept clean. The rest of the committee here is not experienced with this, but I just want to tell you, in all my years, I thought it was an excellent program that helped keep the city cleaner than maybe it is today. And I think it's something that we should consider on a modified basis, doing that pickup so people feel free to get rid of their stuff. If it's over a certain amount, I think most people can realize that, hey, if you charge me $100 to take a bunch of stuff that I don't know what else to do with or whatever, or somebody's moved out or something, that, I think we can still collect some fees, but I think we should have a general bulk pickup. I think we should consider that. That's just one idea I'm throwing out there. Let me see. Oh, the other thing I was saying, and I was asking for your opinion about it too. It seems to me that, maybe we should put something, rat baiting as part of any demolition permit that comes out. In other words, we're gonna tear something down, or somebody wants to tear something down, that they gotta do some preemptive
Yeah, that's
work.
part of what Alderman Storer was alluding to in the chapter 8.07. Prior to demolition or moving of any building, the owner shall use rat eradication measures and take all responsible efforts to abate the rat infestation prior to commencing demolition or moving of the structure. So that's in chapter 8.07.
It's already in.
Okay,
It's
but
already in
is
there.
that on, should that become part of our demolition permit? A big, something put out in detail with lots of asterisks that say, as a condition of this permit, you need to do this first, or whatever.
That's an easy enough thing to do. We can do it
Yeah,
right away, just for policy
I'm just
purposes.
throwing
Yeah,
out
that's
suggestions,
easy.
I'm
Yep,
trying to
that's
be as
easy.
creative as I can. Is that
Sure.
something you think would help?
Anything,
It wouldn't hurt.
It wouldn't hurt,
To make sure
that's
that
for
they
sure.
were aware of that. Just so you know, all the properties that the city tears down through the inspection department, we do the rat abatement process before we demolish them. So,
And what is your experience with it then? Are you catching rats?
I guess I'm not sure. I don't know if we talked with, we make sure that we catch them on the inside.
yeah.
We go inside the building and,
If we inspect the structure and we're gonna raise it and we see conditions where we'll get an exterminator in there and get them out of there. So-
I know,
Before
Cheryl, we've been
demolition.
working for about 15 years about getting rid of properties that don't have foundations and all that sort of thing, so this problem should subside after some point in time.
In our lifetime, do you think?
You
I don't know. Maybe.
You get longer life than I do, so. Anyway, those were some ideas that I thought might be worth thinking about. So, you know, maybe some kits with instructions, with a friendly letter, and
Okay.
maybe considering redoing the bulk permit program, or bulk pickup program, I should say.
I wonder, piggybacking on that just a little bit, if I might add a comment, I wonder if it could just be done spot specific when there's a infestation, that we would go around that neighborhood, see if there is a lot of bulk, and then
Well, I
say,
think we do that. I mean,
but now we charge, if we could say, for this
Well, this would be
instance,
an exterior-
like an emergency situation because of an infestation, we will do a bulk pickup for free 1 week, or 2 days, 3 days, whatever, at a specific.
I would really defer that to Public Works.
Yeah.
I
With
think this
regards to
warrants
their.
improvement services
Yeah,
on this
okay.
idea.
But
You know.
there was one issue I was interested in, and that is some of the things that are legal, such as storing wood. Is that worth looking at, and maybe should we change things, would be stored differently somehow? Would that make a difference? I mean, like, I don't
Well,
know.
there is already code on how wood is stored. It needs to be up off the ground and stacked in a proper
Stacked
way
is-
compared to just,
Height restrictions on it and
Right.
stuff.
But if it's off the ground, I think this is what Randy's driving at, they can still go and make their nests underneath it.
they can, but people need wood sometimes, you know. for-
Yeah.
Right, I don't want to
Yeah.
eliminate,
no,
I don't want to eliminate wood,
People
I'm just
need
wondering
it.
if we need to
Yeah.
revisit those and see if there's some way.
But it just seems to me we have all the tools here in all the ordinance already. You know, I mean, the lid traps, all these are good ideas, but we already have this.
Well, I think you're right.
And I mean, it just seems to me that, I mean, have you noticed a reduction in the complaints since all the experts have been getting on TV and you guys have been having the meetings with the neighborhood associations?
Well, when it gets on
Lid
TV,
traps?
we'll get more phone calls.
Get more.
I mean,
We get
that's
more,
just the
which is
nature
what you
of-
want.
That's the nature of people calling
But are you
and stuff.
seeing any, I mean, do you go back and re-inspect these properties?
Yeah, we'll follow up.
Are you getting the cooperation?
For the most part, yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head where somebody has not been.
So we're having a
cooperative,
positive
so-
effect.
Absolutely. The garbage cans were a positive effect back in the day when I was doing the inspections. And before that, they were in bags. And when did everybody put their bags of garbage out? Night before. And when are rats active?
At night.
At night. So, and not everybody eats their food scraps and stuff in there, so that was a huge help. So, you know, it's a lot of those things. It's not any one particular thing, it's a combination of all those things, and it's a combination of us, it's a combination of the residents, it's a combination of pest exterminators all kind of working together, kind of having an integrated plan where it affects all that, but on a bigger scale, so.
You know, if people composted, that wouldn't be in your garbage.
But
But
then it'd be
then they can eat
compost.
the compost.
Being a-
Yeah, but, well, it doesn't have to be necessarily be a pile, I mean, we've got the county has a drop off where we just keep it in our house and after a while, take a bag and dump it off. It'd be interesting if we could do.
Conflicting
pickups.
efforts. I mean, on one hand, you want to encourage gardens
Right,
and
right.
composting and all that sort of thing, and all that also
Mhm.
provides one of the necessary things for rats.
Right.
I mean, boy, I never thought.
Humans, I mean,
I never
people-
thought we'd get to the day where we had to worry about people with bird feeders and stuff like that.
Right.
But
And a lot of it is real simple. A lot of it is depending on the type of bird feeder that you're using. Does it have a spill container? Are you know, is it one that's conducive that if another animal, squirrel, large bird moves it and shakes it so it doesn't spill an abundance of, you know, bird seed out? How are you storing that? Are you storing it in a double container so a rat would have to work extremely hard, you know, to be able to access the food wherever it's being stored and then, you know, would move on. So a lot of it's making it difficult, putting restrictions on, you know, the readiness of the food.
Can we
But
do a sign?
people
no
need
rats
food to
allowed?
eat too, you know what I mean? So we need food, water, shelter too, so just like them, so, you know, can't get rid of food.
I do have a question. In my district, a concern is packer land, packing, when that gets torn down. Do we have any evidence if there are rats out there? Because certainly the people in the area have contacted me.
I don't think we've gotten
I
any
have
complaints,
never
so, I
gotten
mean,
any
we could
complaint.
certainly send an inspector out there to see if there are
That would be
burrows and
really
some other
nice.
things.
Thank you.
And then we can make sure when that demo permit's pulled, that they would
Right.
go through that process.
Yeah, it's, I don't think anyone's seen it one,
Mhm.
but they're.
But nobody's
the concern
really
is-
up there,
Right.
looking around. We'd have to kind
Right.
of look closer to the building.
But it is a
And you got a
Well, they aren't
wooded
out in
area
the
right
daytime,
behind it.
you know,
Yeah.
much, so.
That's true. Thank you.
Did we want to open the floor?
Sure.
I'd like to motion open the floor.
Motion by floor by Alder Zima, seconded by Alder Dorf. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? If anyone would care to speak on this issue, please come up, state your name and address.
Janet Angus. The property I'm here about is 1373 West Mason Street, 1374 Shirley Street, 1376 Shirley Street, all of which I own. My problem was this. I'm going to show you a picture. I own the house here, the building here, no property over here. Property line's here. The rats are here, and the rats are here, and the rats are here. By the way, I did want to say thank you to both Cheryl and Mr. Pappy, and also to Alderman Zima and to Alderman Weary, because they were really, really helpful in my situation. But I have to tell you, it wasn't easy. We had rats this big, numerous rats this big, right across from Notre Dame High School. They're huge. So I did a little research, and I think you got to spend some money. I think the city needs to spend some money. You need another inspector. You need to help get rid of garbage. The person that had the rats behind his house had a truck full of garbage, a mattress back there. There was, I knew it was right here. There's also a rat nest underneath the shed. And the shed was the problem because that's where the rats were, and they still are. You can't bait because I don't own the property. I can't go over there and do anything about it. I have to rely on the city to go over there and bait. Then the problem becomes the cost factor. So if I want to hire somebody to come in and bait, it's like $100 a month. It's expensive. So why don't we hire an inspector to come in? An inspector that's paid through the city, and we could bait with dry ice. They put dry ice down a hole, and that suffocates the rats. There's another way they do it. They have a new form of poison called contrapest, which is effective also to get rid of rats. It's just expensive, and I don't think my neighbors have the money to pay for the private people to come in and bait. Can't go on to the adjacent property to bait. I can't clean up the neighbors' yards. In that alley, there were divots this big where water would accumulate. The grass was this high. I can't go and cut the grass down. And I can't get rid of the divots in the alley and the water supply. I have to rely on the city for that. And the inspection department was good, but not as good as I think baiting would be if the city had a program. And you only have 4 inspectors. What did they say? 5 inspectors. So maybe the city needs to get more inspectors. And then I think you need to have more money in the budget for garbage pickup, for the bulk items. We used to have, years ago, you used to be able to put a queen-size mattress out, the city would pick it up. Now it sits in people's backyards because they don't want to pay $60 for the pickup. So let's spend some money on something positive for our community, something really positive for our neighborhoods. I mean, rats in my neighborhood are unacceptable. And I just really think we need to do something about it. They carry disease, and the ones that were there were this big. And they're still there. I mean, they may have gone underneath somebody's garage or gone underneath that shed, but without baiting and eradicating them and killing them, they're still there. And, I mean, a rat will go through a sewer pipe. And, you know, maybe they came from the street improvements that were done on Shirley Street. That could have been too. Anytime you build or disrupt, it seems like that's where rats come from. So you're gonna have I think, my personal opinion is you're gonna have a hard time over at Packerland. If they disrupt that area and everything, you better figure out what that situation's gonna be. But if you don't have an inspector, big cities bait all the time. Check it out. They have, in Chicago, you can call 311. Someone will be in your alley, in your neighborhood, within 24 hours, baiting the rat holes and post signs that there's rats. And if other neighbors become aware that there's rats in the neighborhood and there's a rat problem, maybe they'll clean up their yards, maybe they'll get rid of their wood, maybe they'll be proactive as opposed to not doing anything. So I know my neighbors, it was impossible. If it hadn't been for my alderman and for the city inspection department, we'd still have the rats. So, thank you. I hope you really consider.
So the rats are there or gone? Maybe I
I
misunderstood.
don't think rats ever go away. I
Well,
think
no,
they're
they're never
there.
gonna go away, but in those 3 properties, are they clean of rats now, clear of rats?
The rats, I believe, are still there, but I think everything has been done to clean them up, to clean up the properties. Other than, I mean, no baiting was done. So if you don't bait, how are you gonna get rid of the rat's nest under the shed? They've been seen, but I mean, the city can only do so much.
Well, the city can order them to
The city can
exterminate.
order my neighbor to spend $100 to go and hire Orkin to come in.
Or the city
and
can
bait.
order them to go to Fleet Farm and spend, I don't know what it costs for a box of rat poison or traps.
We have to buy those little black traps. I don't even know if you, I looked from them at Home Depot and Menards.
I think the department will follow up where there's a continued problem.
Right.
I think you just gotta.
That's what
call
it sounded like
in.
they said to me.
And of course, if you're not, if they're not responding, well, then you call your alderman. And-
Well, they have responded, but I don't think it's enough. I mean, I think the city should have somebody that goes out and baits for the rats and puts the the dry ice in the holes and gets rid of the rats. Because I think you're just gonna have this problem throughout the neighborhoods, and it must be getting worse because I've never had rats before in my neighborhood. It's the first time in 50, 60 years that we've had rats. We have field mice, but not big rats. So, I don't know. I think you've got to be more proactive. Spend some money on the neighborhoods. I mean, how often do I get in front of the city council and say, please spend some money? Hire an extra person, an extra inspector to go out can bait. And spend some money on garbage pickup. We used to have garbage pickup all the time. You know, my tenants won't put out their garbage. I have to take a dump truck around and pick it up. I literally have to
Well,
go
I think-
around.
I think we could bait where there's a problem and we can send a bill if the people don't do it themselves.
Well, you know, sometimes you get bills. So there's certain things I think that the city should do for its constituents and for the people that live here. And, you know, baiting for rats is a health hazard, and I just think it's something that should be done in a very proactive way by our government. So other cities do it. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else care to speak on this? Please state your name and address.
Oh, my name is Sue Garchani. I'm at 1737 Gross. I was at the meeting that you spoke at the Lombardi Association. And I too have never had rats of any sort in my yard. So I called the city, but I know neighbors have spotted rats. Someone, you know, a hawk took one off, whatever. And they don't call. So I think a lot of times nobody hears about it. They're embarrassed they have rats. They call the exterminator and hope that nobody in the neighborhood knows they have them. So I think it's a bigger problem than it really appears as far as calling the city, my opinion. But everybody I talk to on my block is having incidents. And in fact, I remember in about 2011 or 12, someone came down my street and said, do you have rats? And I said, well, what are you talking about? You know, well, I live by West Mason and we have rats, we live on Gross. And I said, wow, well, here they came, now it's us, And I have to believe that some of the construction from the Packers, with all that stuff that was not inhabited for so long, that they moved on out, because we don't have abandoned homes or houses that aren't on foundations, and I have 15 large holes under my shed, and thank God I've not seen one, because I don't know how
Well,
I
they're there
can-
then, if there's holes, they're there. You better get some bait.
I have work incoming. He's working on trying to kill them. I had the city inspector today come. Eric was in and gave me some ideas also. But I can see where there's other places that they can be coming from. And again, you can't control everybody. He's gonna work with me and then see what happens. If they stop with what I'm doing, then he'll go further to look to see who else might have incidents with it, but I don't know. I went up and down my street and talked to my neighbors, and on the other side of the street, in fact, Orkin should give me some money off, because they got 7 new calls behind the street behind us. And I don't think most people are that proactive, and so, I don't know. I feel the same way that she does, that something could be done with the city to at least do something to help it, bring it down to a dull roar. I mean, right now, it's ridiculous.
Well, if the city is inspecting and people are cleaning up their properties, have you
Yep.
seen that?
I don't think that we have any properties like that. We had, bird baths and
Okay.
bird feeders,
So-
dog poop, things
But
like
people are
that.
educated,
Mhm.
and the rats continue, the city can order them to hire eradicators or at least apply the poison themselves. I'm not sure how much more the city can do.
Well, before somebody has rats, if you're baiting just to kind of stop them from infiltrating, because right now it's just like there's so many.
Well, for the city, and if I could ask Cheryl, at one time, what was the peak for inspectors? How many inspectors did the city have at its peak?
I think we had 6.
6.
Right.
And I was at a meeting representing the police department in which several aldermen banded together and wanted the inspectors to do it by complaint only. Instead of being proactive, which they were, we had city alders that had them ordered to only become reactive. So I agree with you, but at some point too, I think if the city inspectors are educating people, notifying the neighbors, telling them what steps to take, and they're not taking it, then they have the option of ordering them to take it.
So,
Sounds to me like, short of us hiring exterminators, I'm not sure what else the city could do.
are they following up when people are?
I certainly would hope so,
So
but I
you're
believe they
making sure
do.
that they hadn't someone come in and that killed the rats.
Tracking it, yes, that's part of the inspection. I mean, we work with people. Our goal isn't to cite owners.
Yes.
We
Right.
want people to have compliance, so.
And also, if we issue orders, ordering them to hire, it has to be a licensed professional.
They can't do it themselves.
I mean, they can
Okay.
try, but if we get to the point where they're not, I mean, if they want to take some attempts, we'll work with them. But if that's not working and there's still an infestation,
Right.
then we'll order a licensed professional to come in and give
So
them-
this image of the big bad guy city is something more, it's quite different than that. It sounds like,
Absolutely.
my experience has been that they've always been willing to work with homeowners to try and have them be successful without, putting the fist down on them, so.
That's the last thing. we
I
wanna
mean,
do,
but it
is
takes
take
time for these
advantage
things
of
to take effect, like you've noticed. I mean, when did you first notice a rat?
A month ago,
And when did you call Orkin?
2 days later when the holiday was over with,
And has he been over there yet?
4 or 5 times.
And has he had any results?
Finally, it's to the point now where he's gone and poisoned all the holes, and they're not opening up within 24 hours.
Okay.
So he's killing some, but, that just tells you the multitude of them.
Oh, yeah, if you had, how many holes you said underneath?
15.
Yeah, then you had quite a pack under there.
Mhm.
Now, have your neighbors been proactive? Are they taking action?
They've called companies, and so far, the ones that I spoke to have not had a nest, apparently, on the condo for the neighborhood. Yeah, the one who really hates rodents. So I feel like if there was, something in the area where somebody did baiting, on a continuous basis where they're not getting in areas and because people aren't doing anything, so then they do something, but everything takes time. It's like evicting somebody. It can
Sure.
take 6 months to evict them. Well, by then, the next group of the rats are moving on.
And it sounds like rats have been here since ships first started coming over from Europe,
Right?
okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't sound like there's really any one thing or any number of things that's ever going to eradicate them completely. It's like dirt. You sweep dirt off your front walk, it goes over on the neighbors, okay?
Yeah.
The thing to do is to try and get it swept up and put in a bin so it doesn't spread. And the same thing with the rats. Your neighbors, what you're doing now by eradicating them is some are going to die, some are going to move.
Mm-hmm.
And so now more neighbors are going to be complaining going down the road, but you are having an effect. And it sounds like inspection is having a pretty positive impact. And that's why I was asking if there was a reduction in calls, but unfortunately, by publicizing it, which is good,
Yeah.
you get more calls. But I'd like to see in another month or so, before winter sets in, if we're seeing a noticeable difference.
Well, and that's what I'm really concerned about. Because if they get in my house,
You're
there's
out.
going to be a problem. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're already having positive, Orkin is having a positive impact, if those holes aren't reopening. So I think I would rest easier at night if I were you, and just give it some time. But
All right, well,
you make some good points.
yeah, if they're still around a couple months from now, I'll see you then. So.
All right, thank
Thanks for
you.
listening.
Anyone else?
Motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor by Alder Galvin, second by Alder Dorf, all in favor? Aye. Motion is, the floor is closed. I just have one question for staff. Do you think, looking at that map, could part of the problem be that, it seems like closer to the river, it doesn't seem to be quite as populated, it seems to be moving out. So as we address an issue, they're moving, they're on the move, and that's some of what we're seeing is rats in new areas, because we've addressed an area, and now they move to another area, and we're addressing, is that kind
I
of?
think that could be part of it, as we're working in areas and, that movement, killing some, moving some, I think there's definitely a movement part of it that could play a factor.
So eventually we'll just, Schwaben and then Howard? Discussion, motion, I'm
I
not
would make
exactly
a
sure.
motion that we hold this for 60 days, 2 months, and have inspection come back and report on the results of their education campaign and response to the neighbors that are complaining.
Second.
And maybe a communication could be put into INS about bulk, looking at bulk.
Well, I would
pickup again.
think,
That'd be
Yeah.
an INS.
I would put in communication that instead of spending $350,000 on bulk pickup, that we stake that and hire 3.5 more inspectors, or 4 more inspectors. I'd like to see us become more proactive. I think holding property owners to task for the condition of their properties, I think is going to be much more effective. Make them responsible for getting rid of their trash, making sure their trash is picked up. We've had this issue with other complaints about unkept properties, and I think having inspectors out there being proactive would erase a lot more problems than just rats. It would be trash blowing around yards, it would be unkept and unsightly properties, it would be any number of other things that are taking place in our community. And I think being more proactive with proactive inspectors, I think would solve a lot more than just going around with a garbage truck and hoping someone who's got a dumpy yard is gonna put their crap out on the curb to be picked up. So if we're gonna make a recommendation to INS, I'd like that included.
Well, that would be up to anybody who wants to put in that
Okay.
communication. I don't know if we're going to put in one from the committee.
So what was the motion?
Motion is
So
to
hold.
hold for 60 days
Okay.
and have inspection report back to us
Okay.
on your results.
Yes, Alder Zima.
I think that's blowing it off too far.
30 days?
I'd live with a month or something
Month,
like
okay.
that. It's just that, I don't want us to get on this, are we really gonna be proactive, or are we gonna say, well, take care of your problems or we're gonna punish you?
I-
There are certain properties that could be problematic, that maybe don't have landlords that are reacting or whatever it is, but most of the people I saw at the meetings. And Mr. Scannell testified to it, are not our problem type people. They're good people that are facing a problem that they're trying to deal with the best they can. Some are dealing with better than others. Some don't know what to do. And that's why I was trying to suggest a little earlier that can we get, hey, here's a friendly letter with really how you can go about doing this, and if it doesn't work yourself, you should call a pro. And let us know about your progress. Something that shows step 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then get back to us. And it's a friendly thing, that nothing threatening in it. It's strictly instruction, and like I said, we could even, maybe have a kit and sell stuff at cost or something to people to do it, or at least we tell them what products out there exist and how to apply it to the best of our ability. If we need to bring in some pros to give us some advice about it, but I think we need to try to help people solve the problem without having to cost $200, $300, $400, $500. Because there's some people on Maple Street spend a lot more than that. Besides their own trapping, they brought in pros because it just didn't stop. And we finally, the city threw somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple $1,000s in. And we brought pros in and went down to the old Joanne's property, I think, that was kind of abandoned, and I don't know how many little bright eyes we found in there, but I think we found some. And we kind of, when there was really a infested area, we went in and took some proactive steps to do it. But I think first we want to do the least threatening, the least costly way of doing things, and it's helping inform people like the department is presently doing. But as Cheryl said, I think we can make up another letter that really just addresses, along with the information on rats and everything else that the people I've given to have appreciated it, with here's how you go about it. Try this. If it's not working, call us back. Because I don't
certainly
think.
draft those documents.
Sure, that sounds-
Internally through the
Sure, it's-
department.
I'm not sitting, I'm not looking to punish people that have a problem. I think a lot of the people who have problems are good people. There are a lot of good people. I mean,
Absolutely.
everything I saw at the meetings I were, these were concerned, decent people. And I'm not interested in putting something out to, threaten them or make them feel threatened in any way. We want people to know that we're here to help. And if something becomes really overwhelming in an area, like it did on Maple Street, then maybe we use some city money to try to really eradicate whatever we think the problem is. But anyway, I think we've got to be a little more proactive and not just say, well, the department's doing great and let us, we'll just continue the way we are. I don't think there is much wrong with what we're doing. It's just that I think there's ways for us to be more proactive, as I said. I think that letter would do it. So I would like you to come back in a month, and feel free to go ahead and do whatever you're doing, just report back to us. And I guess just kind of address some of the things we're talking about, if there are things I think would be helpful. One of the speakers here, said that they think the problem is continuing, even although it's cleaned up. I mean, I kind of heard an old message. I didn't quite understand it, to be honest. But, there was a rat problem, and they think there still is a rat problem. But, I mean, I think those folks just got to have us go re-inspect the properties, that's all. And
Do we need a motion then?
Yeah, well, we got a motion to hold 30 days, and I need a second.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. I just want, is this something perhaps neighborhood associations might be interested in when it comes to bulk pickup as a project for neighborhood associations to get involved?
I guess, if you just consider maybe a modified pickup program, one that is not for.
Well, right,
Well,
right. It's got to go to INS, but.
I mean, you can talk,
Yep.
I mean, we're talking this, when we had problems before, sometimes they came here, when there were inspection problems, but I mean, it's kind of a double department problem.
Right.
But I think that we should consider, is there a program that wouldn't cost us $350,000 a year? Because we'd be charging for things over a certain amount, and people would be made aware of it, and I think some people willingly pay for it.
That is, that's a public works, I believe we need to talk with improvement and service, see if
Yeah.
those are
I do
some
too. Let's
options.
get that communication
Yep.
in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're on the
I think
radar.
it's something, well, maybe we can recommend it
Please
as a
vote.
second motion after here. Anyway,
All in
report
favor?
back in a month.
Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
Maybe as a second motion that we refer from our committee to the INS to consider, to work with our inspection department as well as their own, to consider a modified bulk pickup program. We have modified it a little bit. There was no bulk pickup. Then now we've picked up twice a year. I don't know that that's really doing the trick.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so communication to INS, Public Works, to consider modifying their bulk pickup. And I'll take a motion to adjourn by Alder Dorf,
Let's go.
seconded by Alder Galvin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
You gotta get off the 16th century.
Oh, I don't know. You gotta,